Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. This episode continuing our series of catching up on 2018 movies before we finally make our top 10s and whatnot. This is going to be First Man, which is the Damien Chazelle directed Ryan Gosling film about Neil Armstrong, the first man who landed on the moon, which that feels like a redundant sentence to say. I feel like everyone learns that by the age of about 7, but you know, that's what the movie is. It's the story of the obsession leading up to that moment. And that's very much it. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do, although not a lot of spoilers for this one, given that it's based in
and it's a story that everyone kind of knows
for the most part. I think there's some personal stuff. There's how it handles certain moments that I think are spoilers.
Oh yeah. But the general, they make it to the moon.
Yeah, they make it to the moon.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they make it to the moon. I know it's just. I'm sorry to spoil the ending for you, but so. But yeah, there was a lot of other characters who I didn't know if they, there's characters who like die at certain points where I'm like, I couldn't have told you they were going to be, goners.
No, that's fair.
Do
you know what I will say is weird about this before we get to anything is the release. If I were I don't know which studio this was. If I were them, I'd have held it off. Because this came out October, November time, I think. I can't remember. Maybe a little bit earlier. Yeah. I'd have held it off till this year because obviously. This July is the 50th anniversary of it. I'd have waited and marketed it around that.
Yeah. I think they were hoping it would be an Oscar contender, so they wanted it out for the season.
I get that.
Obviously, I mean, it would be obviously a contender for the following season. Bizarrely,
too early in the year though for that, isn't it?
Bizarrely though, it's not really caught much steam awards wise.
No technical awards. I think it has. I know there was some surprise about the lack of Claire Foy not being nominated when she was been nominated in pretty much every other awards ceremony, but not for the Oscars.
So no, but I mean, there was one I wanted to check out. I was curious. You loved the director. You have liked everything he's done. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to tell you in terms of what the premise of the film is. It's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
It starts, a few years before the moon landing.
Yeah, I think it starts in about 61.
Is it 61? And it has a couple of time jumps, though. It's actually one of the weird things about the movie is that sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel like time's passing as much as it actually is. Because early on in the film, like his wife is pregnant, and then like 2 scenes later, they've got like a new kid, and I'm like, so at least some months have passed. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. But hey, which makes sense given the time frame that it has to deal with. It's just yeah. So what did you think then? Did you enjoy First Man?
I did very much. Did you?
I liked it. That was good.
Yeah. I suspect this might be a slight reversal on our last review, in that I'm much more into this than you are.
I think the technical elements are fantastic. The way it handles the scenes where they're testing, various ships or rockets or whatever. Yeah. The actual, of course, launch and going to the moon itself. All of that is handled the way it uses sound, the music that's included. The lack thereof for a lot of it as well. The way it focuses on small details, I think all of that is exceptional. The actual story of the movie overall, though, is just kind of it's good. It's fine, but it's not like setting the world on fire kind of thing. I feel like compare it to Whiplash, which I feel like it's pointless compare it to La La Land.
I disagree. You've not seen La La Land, have you?
Yes, I have.
Have you? Okay.
I was forced to watch it for Overload.
Oh, good.
I had to suffer through that 2-hour plus monstrosity.
I think there's a lot of apt comparisons to be made to La La Land. Thank you very much.
I mean, you can make them, but the reason why I compare it to Whiplash, because Whiplash was good, is I feel like Whiplash had a better core story to it, whereas this arguably is a better piece of technical filmmaking.
Yeah, although I will say Whiplash probably had better editing, because Whiplash's editing was top tier.
Sure. I think the scenes that it was playing with in this movie though appealed more to my sensibilities. So the way it was handling the emotion of these like big insane moments, kind of just spoke to me in a way that maybe Whiplash didn't.
Fair enough. I think the core story, the personal story, I think is actually very comparable to both Whiplash and La La Land, in that it's the same core theme, the idea of the obsession. This it's a little bit more muted here in that it's less selfish than in those movies. Um, but I think it's definitely there in the main character.
Obsession is there, although I feel like he is obsessed, but I wouldn't say the movie's actually about obsession so much as it's about something else. But I can't really talk about that until we get to spoilers.
That's fair. And it is interesting that they actually plays obsession more as determination in this one, compared to his last couple of movies, which definitely play much more in the unhealthy side. Whereas, I mean, this still has unhealthy elements, but it doesn't go as far as in the last two movies.
Yeah. Because I think there are moments, I think especially in the first half, there's definitely chunks of this where I was like, yeah, it's a biopic. And just kind of...
Fair enough.
Yeah, that was it.
Fair enough. I think for me, even in those moments, the direction was really like there was even moments where it was just it was him in his house and the way the camera was following him around. I was really into it.
I thought it got stronger as it went. I think when it got to more moments where the direction really got to sing, because it was going into more tense moments or more. There's an accident at one point about halfway through the film that I thought was handled very, very, very well.
Yeah,
and that was where the movie kind of turned up a little bit for me, and kind of like I started to grow more into it. I don't know if I do honestly think that the core drama of the film, because the movie starts with no one ever knew this about Neil Armstrong. I assume this is completely true. He lost a daughter who was quite young.
I would have assumed so as well. Yeah.
And that's kind of the emotional kind of starting point of the film for where he is as a character. And that's fine. That's fine as a character beat. But I will say, like, the drama with him and his wife, I don't know if I ever truly got into it.
Really?
I don't know if it ever made me really care about that in the way that I think it wanted to.
Okay.
That's not to say that there's not some beats that pay off with it that towards later on I actually quite like, because I did.
Yeah.
But I think I liked them more in the theory of this really works as a good ending to that story, as opposed to I actually care about their relationship that much from the rest of the film. I mean, it's hit and miss. There's certain moments I like, there's certain scenes I like with them, but there's other stuff that I don't. There's other stuff that definitely falls a little bit flat for me. And it's actually, I hate to be a dissenting voice here because everyone loves Whiplash, but I think Whiplash is very good, but I don't love it as much as everyone else does. And ultimately, my problem with that film actually is that I kind of hate Miles Teller, and I have a really hard time giving a shit about him.
He does have a very punchable face.
He has. He's so punchable. Ryan Gosling's far more likable in that, and his character's nowhere near as much of a dick, even though he does some dickish things here or there. Actually, on that note, I feel like Buzz Aldrin comes out of this looking like a bit of an asshole.
He does.
Is that just me? I feel like he had 2 or 3 big scenes before we got to the actual like launch and all that, and every single one was like, look at Buzz being a dickhead. Like, what is this?
I hope that's what he was really like.
Did someone have like a vendetta against him because it's based on a book? Like, did someone pay off the writer? Hey, make Buzz look a dickhead.
I don't know, maybe. God, I hope so. Because I know, Armstrong's kids have said it's the most accurate portrayal of their parents that they've ever seen.
Oh, that's good.
So I mean, in that regard, it's accurate. So I mean, I want to assume most things around it therefore are as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that may be unfair. It's one of those things where if you're going to lie about something, as long as your core thing in the middle is this solid truth that you're building around, you can kind of get away with these smaller things around the edges. So maybe Buzz was a lovely guy, and I'm just believing it because it does such a good job with the truth in the middle that I'm like, yeah, that's probably true as well.
Oh, dear. So, it's funny because I feel like compared to Whiplash again, like I think I like this better overall. But at the same time, I almost have this weird thing with it where I kind of appreciate that Whiplash's core story felt like it had more bite and more to say. Whereas this one, it feels more like like a traditional movie arc, I guess. Right? You know, it feels like what he's going through and what he's trying to like deal with as a character feels very typical movie drama, as opposed to Whiplash. It feels like, oh, this is an interesting take on obsession that I don't, and you know, the strive for greatest, in particular of the arts, that I don't think I've seen in anything else or portrayed this way in anything else. Whereas the beats here with like what he's trying to go through and what he's getting over in his relationship with his wife that's being kind of strained by what he does.
You've seen that before.
I've seen this before. I feel like, you know, it's doing it fine. There's nothing wrong with how it's portraying any of this. Like it's definitely solid. As you said, the direction's very good, but it wasn't like, you know, breaking any ground or making me go, oh, I've never thought of it like this before. Or,
I can't like for me, this is probably my least favorite of the three. But I still like it a lot. You know.
Yeah. For me though, the standout was the way all the scenes with the ships and stuff was handled.
Oh, those were phenomenal.
One of the things that I really noticed was that until the actual launch for the moon, until Apollo 11, to use the name of the ship, I don't think up until that point you ever saw an exterior shot of anything that it was flying in, or that anyone was flying in.
It was always a camera, like maybe a camera attached to the side of whatever it was in, and you'd see some of the body, but never just a wide shot.
Well, what I got from it is it was always kind of representing what they could see inside the cockpit. They could see a little bit of the body from the window, and that was like it. But otherwise, it was just always in the cockpit. All the tests that they did, you know, the scene at the start when he's, you know, in a very hairy situation, all of that stuff, all of it is shot from their POV, to the point where I thought it was going to be that way the whole movie. And it wasn't until the actual launch of Apollo 11 where it said, no, what, we're going to a wide shot. You're going to see the rocket actually blast off.
Very majestic impact, I think is probably the word I'd use.
It's very majestic, but at the same time, it's a lot of handheld. There's a lot of shaky sort of camera going on throughout a lot of this. It gives it this kind of raw feeling to it. And I thought that stuff was handled really well. And even the music, actually, to go with the going to the wide shot, the music is almost, I won't say non-existent, but it's almost like...
Oh, no, I've got so many opinions on the music.
Well, no, but it's like, I barely noticed the music for the first, like, 2/3 of the movie.
Oh, really?
It's like other than the piano stuff at the start that's kind of, like, mimicking what the piano playing was doing, like, I barely noticed the music, and then we get to the launch of Apollo 11, and all of a sudden this, that, like you say, majestic music comes in.
Like strings and brass stuff's going on with that.
Yeah, and it continued, the motifs of that continued into the actual moon stuff itself, so...
Yeah.
For me, like, oh, this music's actually really good. But up until that point, I barely noticed it.
Oh, man, I've got so many things on the music. This is, for me, the most interesting music film from 2018. Not necessarily, I'm not going to just say outright it's the best. I need to think on that. Interesting, though. It's doing so many things. One of the things that you're saying, oh, you barely noticed it, is Hurwitz does this thing a lot. He did it a lot in Whiplash as well. I think you notice it almost less in that because of all the music that's in the movie anyway, where he blends a lot of the music with the sound design, and it kind of becomes part of the sound design layer, and it's fantastic. Whoever did the mixing for this is phenomenal, really. But some of the things, like the music is all over the place in what it's doing. There's sections with hand drums, there's stuff with theremins, there's stuff on an old Moog, there's a harp piece in there, you have a waltz in the docking sequence earlier on in the movie. There's so much going on.
Yeah, but like you even describing though, it's kind of meant to blend in. Like it
is for some of the softer stuff. But like that docking sequence, which is maybe halfway through the movie, has a full on waltz.
No, I mean that seems very loud though. So I never even like. That's the sort of thing where it can blend. It can be that and still blend in because there's so much like noise from the docking itself, from the ships, from the going back and through the atmosphere, all that stuff. There's so much going on during that scene. Yeah. I do vaguely remember a little bit of music before chaos started, when they were just kind of like appreciating the fact they were in space for like a minute. In fact, hell, one of my favorite moments of the whole film is there's a scene where relatively early on one of these tests where he gets up above the atmosphere and there's just like the blue line of the Earth's kind of curve hitting his face. Really beautiful stuff. Like all of that I really liked. Like that's for me because I think the last like 35 minutes of the movie is the best part of the movie. Like that last 35 minutes is like just a masterclass in how to handle a sequence like this.
It is, absolutely.
And it's there, and the emotional stuff that kind of pays off in there is actually pretty good. I like what it's doing. I almost wish it spent more time developing it though.
Okay.
Because it's almost like it's trying to do it in a very detached way, where because he's refusing to talk about things, the movie
We're
beyond
kind of with him, yeah.
beyond a couple of little hints and details here or there, is kind of avoiding doing anything else with it because it wants you to feel as detached as everyone else around him is being, the way his wife feels, the way everyone else feels about him.
He's very much an enigma.
But I almost wish they developed it a little bit more, just so that the payoff landed even better. So I guess I guess I feel like the human drama just felt a bit more typical than I think, and I'd like that to be beefed up a little bit. Because it's not so much that I don't want the human drama to be there. I think it's a very important part of the story. I could have done with it being a little bit better, just a bit more explored, I guess.
I guess what you're going is you want it to do something new rather than just because going back to how it felt like a very typical movie arc in what it was doing.
Yeah,
I think it was all very well handled, but I agree that it felt like, okay, this is a story I've seen before. It didn't do anything new beyond,
and not even unique to astronaut stories like that. This could be a soldier who goes off to fight wars, and the wife's worried about that. Anything of that style, it didn't really feel like it was. It didn't have its own spin on it, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to be new per se. It just has to have something that makes it feel like this is this movie's version of it. And it kind of felt like, no, this is just it's like I don't want to say going through the motions because I don't believe the lack of effort was there. It's just
I feel like this is probably comes down to it being a biopic. Where it's based on the true story, and you got to be respectful of what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the details we have, so you don't want and. I guess they didn't want to just conflate things and make stuff for dramatic effect too much. So by its nature, you get we say this all the time about stories based on true events that often they lose a little bit something there because they're too real almost. It's like it's a normal thing rather than something you get in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that, and I guess I'm not really thinking about it in those terms that it has to kind of match the real story to some extent. And arguably, at least in this story, for all the stories that have been based on true events, at least this one has people leaving the planet and going to the moon, which is a pretty epic thing by most standards.
It is.
So it gets to have that going for it and still be realistic, but or be true to the history.
True to life. Yes. Still be a huge momentous event that looks fantastic.
Yeah. And it's funny to hear little things like people wanting to pull funding for it because is this a good viable use of money? Yeah, I did enjoy their frustration when the Russians were getting ahead of them again because they've beaten us every step of this race to space.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah. I've never actually looked into why, but it's just kind of funny in a vague sense thinking about. Yeah, it's weird that Russia never actually got to the moon. Like they never actually
stopped bothering. Well, because it was all about who can do it, right? And once America got there, Russia was just like, what's the point? Getting there, it doesn't have the impact. It's not worth it. It's just Yeah,
but why is that the end of the race? Like, be the first to build a thing in the moon. Like, build a building, right? Have a base. Have a moon base.
You kind of hit the nail on the head a minute ago when you talked about how we could spend this money on other stuff.
That is true. This is true. I'm just saying, it feels weird to just let them have the victory.
No, well, I mean, you lose, right?
You can keep going further. Like, okay, they got people on the moon. We're gonna get.
See, you're falling into the sunk cost fallacy. You're like, look, all right, we lost this one, but more money. We can get the next one. We can do this.
I'm not saying they should. I'm saying I expect it of them. There's a difference.
Yeah. Apparently, they had some level heads.
Well, I mean, that's how communism was meant to work, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything was very level. That was kind of the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the debates come up of is this worth spending all the money on? Is there a reason to do this? Is it about hopes and dreams? And that's always been kind of the argument for this kind of stuff. Obviously, NASA does a lot of really valuable things outside of just
Oh yeah, I mean
the obvious getting to the moon.
There are so many everyday objects that you use now that are because NASA went to like a ballpoint pen, like a biro, That's because they couldn't, ink didn't work properly. Then so it's like, well, we need so where you can't where the ink doesn't just has to be a solid liquid. It has because they have the little bubble at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's to keep it going down because that works in no gravity.
Yeah. Well, it's the old joke that Russians just use a pencil.
They did, yeah. But hey, biros are nicer to write with.
They are. I'm glad they exist, but it's like that was a lot of money spent on something they could have probably just.
No. It was, but ultimately, it has so many everyday uses that I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, but we've got gravity, so I mean, we could use other pens if we see fit.
Yeah, but biros are really cheap compared to other pens. I can buy a pack of biros, like 10 biros, dirt cheap, and I can go through them and not worry when I lose them because I always lose them within about 3 days.
I don't know where I was going with this point, but you've tangented into something stupid.
I feel like I go through a lot.
I was about to praise NASA and their efforts to make us aware of things like climate change, and you're turning it into praising them for ballpoint pens. So
I really appreciate it because I go through a lot of them at work. I lose one every couple of days, and I'm so glad I have a box of like 50 ballpoint pens that we buy really cheap, so I don't have to feel guilty about losing them.
Okay.
So I'm making it about me. Just get over it.
All right. Can we move on to more interesting things then?
Yeah, fine.
Good.
What have you got?
I don't know now. You've put me off track with your stupid rambles. So yeah, the movie's pretty good. to bring it back around, the movie's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in terms of, for me, the human story, I think it always landed the hardest whenever there was a death of someone else and how it affected him. I think that's when. Oh,
sure, yeah, and I agree. That was better than the other stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of this complex of emotions of this seems to affect him, but it never seems to make him think for a second to stop doing what he's doing. He just has to process it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And it gets worse and worse as the movie goes on. Yeah, I mean the acting's pretty good.
Can't fault it.
There's a lot of names in here that you kind of like see, recognize. You recognize Jason Clarke's one of the astronauts as well. He pops up in a lot of stuff. Corey Stoll's Buzz Aldrin again, leading to him being a dick because Corey Stoll's.
This is the thing. Going back to whether or not Buzz Aldrin was actually a dick, probably not. But you cast Corey Stoll, so he is now.
Yeah, Patrick Fugit I recognised from what do we call it? Outlast. No, Outcast. Outcast.
The Demons?
Yeah, the TV show.
Yeah, Outcast.
I'm forgetting the name of it, but yeah, him. He's in there. Bunch of recognisable faces popping up. Shea Whigham's in there. Who's your dependable guy for a small role.
Yeah, he's everywhere, isn't he?
He's always,
for good reason.
Always dependable. So no, I mean the movie kind of brisks past the debate of whether or not we should, because one of the things that I liked about that pilot we watched of the first, funny enough, with a very similar title, which is a show set in the future about going to Mars, but it's about the space race kind of side of it. It's about the trying to get there rather than just here we are on Mars. One of the things I liked about that is when the debate of like should we spend money on doing this is they actually had arguments about it. They debated it. I feel like in this, like the question is raised briefly and then it's just kind of ignored.
Yeah, it's not the focus of this movie, is it?
No.
It's just it's acknowledging that those concerns were happening, and just kind of like, oh, this was part of the mindset that he was in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't something that the film was concerned about tackling on any real scale. It was, I mean, if you start adding that in, you're getting towards a 3-hour movie.
No, you are. I almost wonder if it would have been better just not to have that mention of it, just because it raised the idea and then it didn't, do anything with it. It didn't tackle it. It didn't give me an argument. Now I have a lot of arguments that I've heard, and I know what the arguments are, but it never actually made its case.
No. I think the point of it in the movie is so that it's something else weighing on Neil, right? There's something else there that he's got to be considerate of when he's going through things, when he's leading these missions, right? It's just something else, the pressure, I guess, is there for him. Like, he's got to justify it to the public now as well. They're not even on your side. Not all of them are on your side anymore. But Yeah, maybe that could have, if you don't have that, maybe you don't lose too much, and you don't have these questions of should we be addressing it more.
Yeah, because there was like one scene. There was like one scene of someone
Yeah, it
bringing it
was.
up.
Yeah.
You could easily axe that, and it would only cut like maybe 2-3 minutes out of the movie, but
It would stop you questioning things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, I get it.
so yeah, I'd maybe remove that. But yeah, it's very. I mean, it's actually got quite a brisk pace when it comes to the actual Apollo stuff, because there's a lot of tests happening. There's this fun, like they've got the vomit chair, which is what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Where they're like testing them to see how long they can go without passing out. And just there's some fun little beats in there, some fun little there's a little bits of humor. It's not a comedy by any means, but there's little bits here
little
or
bits
there.
of levity, yeah.
They're just moments of just human stuff basically.
Yeah.
It's
just to make sure that we're aware these are people, not just characters, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's there for, just to ground them a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'd argue you should do that for all characters anyway. To me, that makes them a character, not just a cardboard thing on a page.
Fair enough.
I
don't disagree.
All characters should be grounded. They don't get special treatment because they're based on real people.
They probably do.
No, they shouldn't. And if anything, it has a negative effect when they try and treat them differently because they're real people.
Okay. I don't think there was any negative effect here.
No, there wasn't. But you said it that weird way, so I'm
okay.
I'm picking up on it and jettisoning it out the airlock, as it were.
Okay.
I guess we'll give a spoiler warning if we want to talk about spoiler stuff, but I don't know if there is.
There's really not that much.
There's one or two little plot details towards it. So full spoilers for First Man. So yeah, I like the thing on the moon, right? So because earlier on in the film, someone asked him at a press conference, because I think Buzz says something like, "Oh, I'm going to take up something
jewelry from my wife."
Yeah. So that it's been on the moon. So when I bring it back, it'll have all this weird bragging rights and sentimentality.
Can't blame it.
And they ask Armstrong if he's going to take Earth, and he's like, no, I want more fuel. He's very straight, to the point and serious. Has no time for jokes here. But he actually does take up something. He takes up his daughter's bracelet, right? And it's like he lets that go on the moon. So she's like part of her's on the moon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is actually a really great idea. It's a really sweet moment. It works really well. And I almost wish it set it up even more than it did.
Okay.
I almost wish that. And not so much that it set it up in the sense that I didn't want a scene of her like saying, "Oh, hey, Dad, I wish like I could be on the moon," or something like that.
More just that the bracelet was a bit more present.
Yeah,
throughout the movie.
I wish the bracelet was set up more. Like, I kind of like because I like the idea that we don't really. It's funny. Like, I'm almost of two minds because in the one hand I'm like I wish they'd delve more into it, but in the other hand I almost wish they didn't. But they just set up the bracelet better because I almost think there's a merit in this moment being the moment we realise that this has all been about his daughter. This has all been about her weighing on his mind. Because one of the things I was thinking about as he was going up was that okay, so part of why he's so driven to do this, part of why there is the obsession, and it's a much healthier obsession in a way, even though he's doing this very dangerous thing.
Yeah, it's unhealthy in the way it affects his home life with his two very alive sons.
Yes, but like I was thinking of it this way: is that he's so driven to do this because he couldn't save his daughter. There was nothing he could do. So by doing the impossible, by doing this thing that's never been done, he'll feel like he's achieved something of worth, right? The idea that he felt so helpless with his daughter, so the idea of doing something that no one's ever done and feeling essentially like a god by doing so. Not that he feels egotistical as he's doing it, but just in the sense that
it never comes across that way.
Yeah, he's achieving the impossible, and that makes him mighty.
Yes, literally going somewhere where no one else has ever been. That's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, I quoted a line there from something.
Mm-hmm. I'm brushing over it.
From Firefly.
I know.
Which was created by Joss Whedon. He also did the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I really thought I could power through that one.
No, hell no. Hell no.
I really thought I could.
I wasn't letting that go. Are you kidding me? But no, I mean, the moment itself's really great because he sort of drops it into one of the craters on I almost said Mars there, not Mars. The moon. It's like, what movie were you watching? You got...
Yeah, I was about to question.
That was the twist ending. It was an alternate reality where they went to Mars instead.
Did you just watch the first? Is that what happened? You just watch that instead.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's looking an awful like Sean Penn these days. It's weird.
It is, isn't it?
No, and just to go back again to the launch, everything from them, like from the launch, going into orbit, out of orbit, into space, everything about that, like I think the word you used earlier was majestic. It felt like a musical production to me. Everything about it felt like, as the pieces were falling off, as the decisions were being made, as they were seeing things out the window, everything felt very well timed. It was a very, very smart edit through that. And
you
whole
have it
sequence.
you have it punctuated with these moments of silence. When we cut to one of the cameras on the exterior, and we're in space, there's no sound,
which is not a new technique. I've seen many a space show use the harsh cut to silence outside as a.
It has, but in this, it does it a couple of times just as punctuation in this whole sequence. It's done really effectively.
Yeah. So no, all that stuff's really good. I liked how it looked as well when they're on the moon. I liked just the general look of it.
The lighting was gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Not unlike the film Moon, which I thought had a very similar kind of look on the moon itself. Yeah. Just this harsh, bright light from the sun. And then just darkness around everything else, basically.
Yeah,
so,
looked good.
No, it looked really good. So yeah, because the final moment of the film is when he gets back, he's in quarantine. It's his wife comes in and they don't even say anything to each other. They just kind of put their hand up against the glass. The idea being that they're going to reconnect now, because he's finally achieved this. He's finally getting this off his chest. And do you know what I think is really funny about this is I was thinking about gravity and how gravity is actually about almost the exact same thing.
Yeah,
it's about getting over the death of a child, and how going through this kind of like finally like I mean, it's not the exact same, but it's very close.
No, I'm with you. I get you.
It's very similar. Like I almost expected Sandra Bullock to walk in from the future at the end and be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
I'm with you.
But which is not a critique, because again, it's based on a true story. This is what actually happened. At least I assume it is. I assume it is.
We have every reason to believe.
I feel like his kids would probably dispute the fact if they added in this daughter that never existed. It's like
like I said, I saw when the movie came out, there was things of them saying it's the most faithful the adaptation of their parents. So the portrayal.
Has there ever actually been that many movies about Neil Armstrong? I can't think of any. If they have been, I don't feel like they've been that big.
No, there must be a couple here or there, though.
Yeah, some there must have been.
Well, there must have been. It's too big an event for there not to have been.
I mean, I'd be surprised if there wasn't one by the end of 71.
Yeah. They probably rushed one out pretty quickly to really push that morale boost thing, right?
Yeah, actually, there must have been. I feel like there should have been a scene where they were going through the channels and Star Trek was on. I feel like there's a little humor chuckle there to be had.
Yeah.
Because we don't really think about this now, but Star Trek actually was on a few years before they went onto the moon.
It was, yeah. It was, right in the middle of, this film was, 61 to 69?
Yeah, during the middle of that, yeah.
Right in the middle of that.
Yeah. I feel like there's just a chuckle to be had of him, like, seeing that on TV and having this weird moment of, like...
We'll get there.
Yeah. Do my best.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, though, because it kind of does this weird balancing act where early on, it's really like hitting us hard that there's a lot of science involved in doing this. But by the time we get to the last act, the film's almost not concerned with that. Like the characters are doing things that feel like they're being accurate with what they're doing, but it doesn't really bother us with it. It doesn't really have us worry about it.
It's been sorted over the course of the film to the point where it's like this is going to work or it's not.
Essentially, yeah. So no, it was good, but. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much done. It's actually really simple to talk about the film outside of the technical elements because it is a pretty straightforward story.
I will say, just in terms of the technical stuff, I think one of my favourite sequences, outside of the whole launch at the end, was when they were spinning and falling. Oh man, that looked fantastic. Yeah, because you could see it wasn't like a perfect circle that was spinning on. It was this elliptical axis, and so when you shot outside, you would get this changing bit of where the Earth was in comparison.
Oh, wait, was this earlier on you're talking about?
Yeah, when they're spinning. After the docking.
There's a lot of spinning going on, but yeah.
No, the main one where they're...
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, they're trying to attach to the Gemini thingamajig.
Yeah. Although, that reminds me, my one real complaint of this movie. Gemini, not Gemini. They say Gemini a lot.
They do.
No, I will not stand for it.
They do, yeah. All right. What you rating First Man?
I'll give it an 8.5.
I'll give it a straight 8. So, as much as it sounded like I was basically committing combat in Connor's glowing praise because I knew it was coming. I actually really liked it, but there's just some things that feel a little bit more typical that I can't like say outright loved it. Like it took a while to grab me. It wasn't really until the accident when like 3 of them died in the test, because it wasn't even a launch. It was just a test thing, but they were in the chamber and the fire started.
Yeah.
And that scene
over into the White House and him getting that news.
That scene is fantastically done as well, because you see the kind of the spark, and then they kind of realize it's happening, and you're like, oh, they're going to like get out this, out this the cockpit here in time,
and the camera just cuts outside, and you just see the implosion. Kind of crumple the edge of the door a little bit, and then some smoke come out, and it's like, well, shit.
Yeah, they're just dead.
Yeah.
And they make a point of making us like Jason Clarke a little bit before that scene, so that,
they do, yeah.
So that we care a little bit. But yeah, so that's First Man. So that's another 2018 film knocked off the checklist. You can let us know what you thought of it in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, you can head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, and you can go over there and get these in Flux reviews a week early. You get other stuff some early. You get some stuff bonus as well. But you can go over there and look at that. You can get some merch. There's merch in the store. There's a US and UK store. There's links in the description. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we will see you next time.